Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside each and every week is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts here this Tuesday morning on the Women of Golf. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing better now.
It's amazing what sun will do for you. Holy cow, it's beautiful in Buffalo.
Well, obviously we've sent you some from sunny Florida because it's not today. It's a little bit overcast, but I'm not complaining. It's been a beautiful Memorial weekend, and hope you had a great time at the Miller household. How are things?
All is well. We're back in the swing. Golf lesson.
Yeah.
Yep. We had a cookout yesterday. We invited our son, his daughter, the in-laws. Nobody had a fight. Everybody got along.
Yeah.
And we ate
and all. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, we pretty much did the same thing in our neck of the woods. But happy Memorial weekend, everybody. I know it's a day after, but we hope you had a good, safe and happy holiday. And we want to also express our thank you to all the men and women who serve this great nation over the years, both past and present. We appreciate your service always, because Memorial obviously is to remember all of those men and women who helped to make this nation as great as it is. So thank you very much for all that. We hope everybody had, again, a safe and happy holiday. We got a great show for you this morning. We're going to be joined a little bit later on by Andree Martin. She's an elite level, an award-winning golf instructor. She's a Class A LPGA teacher professional. She'll be joining us on the second half. But first, Cindy, you know where we're going. We're going into the no BS zone for this morning's show. And but first, let me remind everybody that Women of Golf is brought to you by iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports Network is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top quality programming designed to attract you, the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PJ and LPGA teacher professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today at golftipsmag.com. And just a quick note, the first issue, as most of you maybe, if you've been following the show the last few weeks, I recently purchased Golf Tips Magazine, so it's now under the umbrella of the iGolf Sports Network. And my very first issue is going to be coming out. It's actually on its way here shortly, but within the next couple of weeks, it'll be hitting newsstands June 16th. And I think you're going to really love the cover on it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about now, but there's a great story based on the cover, and lots of other great things, including our very own Cindy Miller has not only a great golf tip, but also a great series for those of you looking to help connect business and your golf game as well. So look for that coming out June 16th at newsstands near you. So, all right, Cindy, I thought what we would do for the no BS zone this morning, because there are still obviously a lot of folks that have been kind of cooped in over the last couple of months because of course, the pandemic, and in some cases a little earlier on, because the weather wasn't quite good enough to get out there and practice. So here are some simple indoor drills to help keep your game in shape. And there's really, Cindy, I think 3 scoring clubs: the driver, your wedge or wedges in this case, and the putter. And I think if you really work hard, and we all know there's 14 clubs in the bag, but those are really the clubs that help score. Your driver obviously helps to put you in position on many holes. Your wedge, of course, helps to dial into the greens, and putter, of course, you need that on your green as well to sink those putts. So, and as I mentioned, not everybody has, Cindy, the option to get out early and practice their game outdoors, but there's no excuse that you can't work on your game while you're at home. So I put together some things here, and we're going to start with the putter. We're going to start from the green and work our way back a little bit. And I believe there are 3 musts, if you will, in becoming a good putter. Number one, and then I'm going to get you to chime in as well. Number one is your stroke must follow the target line, and we'll explain that a little bit more. Number 2, your putter must remain square to the target line. And number 3, your forward stroke must equal or be slightly exceed your backstroke. So these are some basic guides to focus on distance control and other key aspects of putting. So, Cindy, you've taught many, many lessons as your husband, Alan, over the years. How important putting, number one, and what are maybe some tips that you do with your students to help focus on some of the things that we just talked about here with putting, as far as your target and obviously your alignment?
You know, it's funny. Alignment is really important, and you need to find out if you see straight lines or curved lines. Mm-hmm. And that might be a little bit too detailed for a beginning golfer, but for those listening who have ever stood over a putt and had a real long breaking putt that broke miles, and if you stood over it and you're like, you know what, I got no idea, but I got to hit it. And you hit it and you make the putt, if that's ever happened to you, you're probably a nonlinear putter, which means you don't see straight lines. You see curves. So if the hole is right in front of you, the other side of the hole would be midnight. Right in front of you would be 6 o'clock. You can always see what time the ball might fall in the hole with a curve. Mm-hmm. If you can understand what I just said, you're probably nonlinear. On the other hand, if you're linear, you see a straight line, the ball's going to break 2 cups to the left. I got to start at 2 cups to the left because it's going to break to the right. That's a linear putter. Now, that's important, but the most important part of putting is distance control. So if you were 40 feet away and you aimed it a foot off, which is pretty bad, right? A foot right, left or right, and you read the putt incorrectly, but you had the perfect distance, you got a foot to knock it in. So sometimes we zero in or focus on something that's not the most important piece. The most important piece is distance control, in my opinion.
I agree. If you listen to many of the pros, Cindy, that play on tour, they would agree 100% with you that distance, and really that applies in every aspect of your game, not just on the putting surface, but your distance control is more important because you can always work on direction. That's something that's much easier to work on, I believe, than distance control. I mean, how often do we see people hitting, golf balls on the range, and maybe they're working with their 7-iron. One goes 150 yards, the next one's 130, the next one's 162, and there's no general consensus of distance control. And the problem with that is they end up going back and forth. And the same thing is, and even more importantly, on putting. And here's a couple of little tips that I'm going to give for the listeners out there that they can be working on at home. And it's very, very simple, some drills, if you will. So now some of you may not have these anymore because times have changed, but if you've got a couple of old phone books, and if not, if you have a home office, maybe you've got some copy paper, you can use a couple of packages of copy paper or something along that size. It's relatively thick, not too thick, but maybe a good inch or so. And if you drop them on the floor and position them far enough apart so that your putter head barely squeezes through them, and you obviously want them to be perpendicular to one another. You want them to the putter to be able to fit in between the two of them, and then you would place a golf ball between the books and assume your putting posture. And what I would do is set the ball in between, and I'm referring to the length of the phone books or the paper or whatever objects you're going to use. So that way, when you're taking your putting stroke, you're going back to the end of one side of the book. So if you're right-handed, you're going back to the right until you get to about the edge of the book, and then your follow-through is the same or slightly more. This will help with your tempo, but it also helps as a guide. You don't want to be hitting, whether with the toe or the heel of the putter, you don't want to be hitting either of these. So you want it just far enough apart that you can get it through. You don't want it tight, but you get it through. And that's a great way to help, again, work on your tempo, and it also helps a little bit because you're taking it back the same distance. Now, obviously, that your putt is not going to be the same for every shot, but this gives you an idea to work on a sort of a smooth tempo. The other one, this is a little more difficult, and I'm going to just mention this, Cindy, and then we'll move on. This also improves your distance control. And what I've done before with students is to take a penny and put a tee upside down. So you've got the part that you would set the ball on top and set it on top of the penny. And then what you do is you put that at a distance, whatever happens to be a few feet away. And the idea is you want to putt as close as possible without knocking the tee over. And the idea is it gives you, again, a sense of distance control. And it's a super tough drill because if you hit it a little bit too hard, obviously you're going to knock the tee over. And the idea is you move that penny and that tee a little bit further away or a little bit closer up, depending on what you want to do. So you might want to start at 3 feet, and then you want to move it to 5 feet. So this gives you a couple of little drills that are very, very simple to do. It doesn't take very much time to put them together, and you can practice them at home if you've got a nice carpet to work on, or even if you had to on a hardwood floor. So those are a couple of things that you can do. What about you, Cindy? Have you got some drills or some things that you've kind of put together over the years that have been very effective for people wanting to improve their putting?
I'm sorry, I was muted. You know what? I've got to ask you, when you did the telephone book, were you talking about having the putter head? Are the books on the toe and the heel, or
yes.
behind
yes,
where your stroke would be?
No, toe and heel.
So basically, you're making a trough.
Right, exactly. You're making a trough, if you will, and the idea is you want to have the distance of the two books just far enough so that there's some room. So there's a little bit of wiggle. Again, you don't want it really tight, but you want it. And you could use like a couple of shoe boxes or something like that. We often see, a lot of times working on some of the longer clubs, you'll see people put a board or sometimes even two boards down, and you'll hit shots without hitting one of the boards. I like to do that with putting because it gives them an idea that they know they've got to keep it true and they've got to keep it square. But the idea, it gives them a benchmark to work with. Now, again, distance putts are going to work differently. So you can actually, even if they're old books or something, you can mark some lines on them so that you can say, okay, take your center spot. So in the middle of the two books, you've got your line there. And then maybe 3 or so inches behind, you've got your first backstroke. And then 3 inches in front of that line, you've got your forward stroke. And you can do that all the way until you get to the end of the book and take them back. So if you go to the first spot on your backstroke, you want to go to the first spot in your forward stroke. And that gives you an idea of various different speeds and different distances. And then you can see how far the ball goes and say, okay, if I take it back to the second line and I follow through to the second line, maybe the ball rolls 10 feet. So it gives you an idea. It gives you a visual that you can see how far each of the putts are going. And it also helps you visually to see how far I need to take the putter head back and how far to take it through. And at the same time, by not touching the books, you're not sort of wobbling all over the place. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. What about you? Do you have something similar or something unique that you work with your students when it comes to putting?
You know what? I tell people to walk on the putting green and to put your feet shoulder width apart. Do not putt to a hole. So every time you're going to go play, I want you to stand on the putting green, put your feet shoulder width apart, make the width of your stroke be the width of your feet. So same kind of idea, but this is out on the green. So width of the stroke is the width of your feet. I don't want any distinctive effort of hit, so no slamming, hitting, and then you're going to watch to see how far the balls go. Each ball should go the same distance if you give it the same amount of oomph, which is really just allowing the putter head to swing like a pendulum. And that will give you the key for the day on the greens you're playing. So
right.
Again, if you go to the green, you drop 3 balls. If it hasn't rained, it could be you get a 5, a 6, a 7. So you walk off yards, how far the ball goes. Then you've got your key for the day. So if you've got a 3-footer, it's a shorter stroke. So same idea, but it's just a way to find out what am I doing today on these greens.
Yeah, and that's equally important. You're exactly right. Obviously, there's some drills that we can do at home. That you should do both, really. I mean, when you're at home, especially during these times, and you haven't had a lot of opportunity, maybe your local course hasn't been open, and you've got to do some things at home. These are some great things that I mentioned that you can do at home. If you're able to get out to the golf course, then what Cindy's talking about, you want to get onto that practice green, and you want to get an idea and a gauge of how the greens are going to be today. Because again, if it's rained, they're going to be a little bit slower. If it's been sort of warm, hot, and dry, the greens are going to be a little bit more slick and a little faster. So you want to make sure you gauge, and you definitely want to pace that off. So that's a great way to get prepared. And most importantly, if you're playing out there today or over the next little bit, allow yourself some time to go and do these things. Don't just show up 5 minutes before your tee time and then race to the first tee and then wonder why you have a crappy round. There's nothing worse, especially if you've been taking lessons and you're working with a professional like Cindy or myself, and you're going out there and you're doing all the hard work, and then you show up and you don't practice anything or work on anything before you go. We're going to move on, Cindy. The next one is the pitching wedge, and this is something, again, we're going to talk about if you're working at home and you're not able to get to the golf course or haven't been able to. Here's some great little drills that you can do, and this is one fairly common. I think, Cindy, we've heard this many years over for many instructors, but if you've got a decent sized little backyard, you can find maybe about 10 feet of open space. Put a small towel and stand about 10 feet away, and sort of use a short and smooth stroke, keeping your hands ahead of the club face, trying to chip 50 balls onto the towel. Practice that the balls land on the towel, not come to rest on the towel. Start with an 8-iron and then move to a 9-iron and then to your wedge. This gives you an idea, again, with your distance control. These are some drills, or a drill, Cindy, I'm sure that you've worked on yourself over the years, and ones that you probably had your student, and that is the towel drill. And again, you can incorporate that with a green as well. Maybe you can put a towel on the green, and you can stand off the green a little bit and do some short pitches or even chips onto that towel, just to, again, get a visual. What are your thoughts there?
Totally agree. I would go a step further, and I would walk off 5 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards if you're on the range or outside and have the space, and take just one club, and maybe it's your sand wedge, and you can grip down, grip middle, grip end. Again, how big a swing are you taking? How far down are you gripping it? And how far is it flying? You can only control how far it flies. You can't control what it does when it hits the ground. But you can, the more you play, the more the science becomes the art. And then you can get the feel and figure out what's going to happen to the ball when it hits.
Right. And the idea is, by utilizing some of these drills, it gives you an opportunity. Again, they can take very little time. I mean, you can spend 20 minutes at home doing, all of these drills, or maybe even 30 minutes. You don't have to drive to the golf course. And we're not trying to dissuade you from doing that. But in a situation, especially through the winter months, people are always looking for things to do. Now, obviously, if you're up in the Northeast, you can't go outside anyways. But there's some things that you can do inside that can help work on your game a little bit. We're going to move on to the driver.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, there's no, there's no excuse really, in my opinion, that people can't be working on their games, and especially right now, when we've all been sort of under lockdown for the last couple of months. You can plunk yourself down and watch a bunch of Netflix movies, or you can be working on your golf game for when your course opens up. So the last one is the driver. And again, this is another scoring club. People may not realize it, but it is. This helped put you in the position on many of your holes. Not every hole you're going to hit the driver, but certainly a good many of them. And I'm going to scale this back a little bit. Some people are maybe not real confident with their driver. maybe a 3-wood or even a hybrid club. We'll plunk that in there as well. But many golfers turn their hips and shoulders simultaneously when they swing the club. Too much lower body rotation eliminates torque between the upper and lower body. Adding more backswing torque to your swing generates distance. So here's a really good drill and tip, I think, and Cindy, I'll let you add one in there as well. So if you got a chair, if you're at home, sit down in a chair, spread your feet out wide and keep them flat on the ground. Hold a 7 or 8 iron, or virtually any short or middle iron club in front of you. Hold the club head in one hand and the end of the grip in the other hand. Raise the club over your head and rest the shaft across your neck and shoulders. Turn your shoulders to the right. Hold that position for a few seconds. You should feel a lot of torque along your left-hand side, again for right-handed golfers. Turn your shoulders back and face forward, relax, and repeat. What this does, now obviously you're not going to be sitting down, but what this does, it gives you a general idea of your range of motion. Now what I'm going to caution you is, do not force this movement. In other words, you want to sit up straight, you want to have that club behind your head resting on your neck and your shoulders, and you want to turn as much as you can comfortably. Do not force this. Don't try to add extra torque to get to that 90-degree position or beyond. You're not John Daly. Because you can obviously tweak your back a little bit. But what this does is it helps, gives you that feeling because you can't move your lower body. It's plunked in a chair. It gives you an idea of the kind of torque and the tension that you want to build. Think of it as twisting a rubber band. We've often heard that excuse used before in the past. Do that and then do the same thing with the follow through. And if you're finding that you can't move very much or you're very limited, then that gives you an idea that you need to do some exercise and some works to stretch particularly that core area. So there's some great exercises, some great certified golf fitness instructors out there that you can connect with. Maybe your local PGA or LPGA professional can help you with that as well. But those are some, that's a drill that I found to be very, very successful in helping to understand and building that torque. What are your thoughts, Cindy? And is there something that you like to do to sort of help with the driver?
Yeah, I tell people to knock their knees in and point their toes in just to help create leverage, right? So the lower body doesn't move as much as the upper body because you need the leverage to create the speed. And then sometimes when I have people that really skate the puck, if you will, and get too far ahead of it on the downswing, I make them pick up their left heel so they can't get all their weight back to their left side too soon, which will make them spin out. So they stay in position longer and then hit it straighter.
Right. Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, is you need to there's sort of this misnomer in golf by many amateurs that you've got to just and I hate to steal a phrase, but grip it and rip, and that was great, as I mentioned, and the reason why I mentioned John Daly is that was the phrase that he was often associated with because he would just coil, basically 360 degrees and then unwind and he would launch it a mile. John had that flexibility despite his appearance, and he was able to do that, and that was a natural movement for him. But the truth of the matter is you don't have to take it that far back, and you don't have to swing necessarily at 100% power. Most of the professionals never swing at 100% power. And the reason being is they're more concerned with accuracy. Obviously, distance is a factor and something that they want to do, and it gives them that extra room if they do need to step on a drive a little bit. They've got some a little bit. But if you're swinging at 100% all the time, not only does your accuracy in many cases decrease unless you're a really stellar shot maker, but you don't leave any room for extra distance if needed. So I always say for golfers to try and stay around 80% of what your swing speed is. And you can test that out. You can work with your pro, and they can give you ideas. And a lot of times some good drills, especially with driver, and I'm sure maybe you've done this as well, Cindy, with students and even for yourself, is I go out myself and I will tee up and I will start swings and I'll start as low as 30%. I'll just barely take that club back and swing through, and then I'll ramp it up to about 50%, and I'll keep going up usually in increments of 10, and I'll stop around 80, even 90% at the most, because I find for me, even if I try to go 100% all the time of my full power, a lot of times that's where my accuracy starts to abate, because again, I'm very tall, I'm very long in the legs, and as you saw at the show this year, and for me, I tend to get more, as you said, the transition from back foot to to front foot sometimes gets a little bit off if I try to put too much power into it. What do you think about that? What do you think about, sort of stair stepping, if you will, in speeds, and doing that as maybe as a drill?
Absolutely. Again, I don't believe that most golfers understand that you're trying to get a feel for what you're doing with the club. And
right.
People will come to the driving range, and the first club they pull out of their bag is a driver. It's like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? And so they don't understand the art of feeling, where's the head? What am I doing? So, yes, it's more important to hit it in the fairway. And I believe that taking these 30% swings will make you just a better ball striker. You'll be aware
right.
of what you're doing with the club. You can't sit there and try to hit the ball. You've got to swing the club. And then if you do that, the ball will go where you want it to go.
Right. And also, too, you get less injury that way. I mean, I've seen people go out there and just swipe at the ball. And a lot of times, because they don't have a free, fluid swing, they're almost stopping at the ball. Even with a driver, I've seen, especially some of our older golfers who don't have the same flexibility anymore, they'll sort of, it gets to a point they're not even swinging the club back anymore. They're almost picking it up, and they're kind of chopping down, and they'll stop maybe a little past impact, and they're not getting much distance. And the problem is they're no longer swinging the club. And again, that a lot of it is equated to lack of flexibility. So there's some great drills that you can do to work on flexibility, and I suggest that obviously you consult, with your physician and make sure that you're not doing things that are going to hurt you. And particularly, if you're going to get into an exercise regimen, don't just go to the gym and start lifting weights and doing things like that. There are a lot of great certified golf fitness instructors out there. Certified yoga. Yoga is a great thing, for helping with flexibility and stretching and things like that. So you want to make sure you go to somebody specifically that is experienced in exercises that are going to help your golf game. There's a lot of great exercises out there, but some of them may be counterproductive or counterintuitive to what you want to be able to do. So there's a lot of great options out there, and these three clubs that we just talked about, the putter, the wedge, and the driver, are really a lot of your primary scoring clubs. And we've given you just a taste. There's so many more things that we could talk about, but we just wanted to give you a little taste of some of the things that you can do, both while you're at home and, as Cindy pointed out, even when you get out to the golf course, that you can do to kind of work on your game. And you can make them kind of fun. If you go with a buddy, you can kind of put some games together and have a little bit of fun with it as well as during your practice sessions. But if you're not able to get out there yet, or you don't have a lot of time to spend 30 minutes or an hour, at the range, then some of these things you can do at home, and they're going to help you, I guarantee, with your golf game. Any closing or final thoughts on the topic, on the no BS zone today, Cindy? I think we covered it.
Yep.
I really can't emphasize enough about practice for people out there, and I'm a firm believer, especially in this day and age, Cindy, and you're in the same boat. We've become so busy in our lives with so many different things, and for a lot of our golfers out there that don't have a lot of time, maybe it's 30 minutes just to get to your golf course, then you got to add another 30 minutes or more, and you just don't have the time. So there's a lot of great little nifty little drills and tips that you can do, and you can be working on even in your own home. You don't even have to go outside for many of them, and we touched on a few of them here, but this is where you want to really engage with a golf professional and communicate with them, somebody like Cindy Miller. And now with the advent of so many great products like Zoom and other things that you can actually connect with them online, and be able to see one another and get some visual tips that way that you can be working on, there's really no excuse. Again, if you can't drive to the golf course, again, utilize some of this technology. There's some great products out there, And our guest last week or the other week that we talked about from V1 Sports is coming up with some great products that the coaches can use and have been using for years, but they're even advancing it that much further. So again, Cindy, there's no excuse for our golfers not to be working on their game and practicing right in their very own home.
Absolutely.
And on that note, we are going to just hang tight. We'll just chat a little bit until Andree is available. And then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of pre-introduce her, just tell us, the folks a little bit about her. And then when she comes on board, Cindy will bring her on. As I mentioned earlier, our very special guest, Andree Martin, is an LPGA professional. She's a Class A professional and a certified golf coach. She was recently inducted into the Maine Golf Hall of Fame and has more than 30 years of golf experience to bring to the tee. Her goal as an instructor is to take good care of the golfers that want to play their best, whether they're just looking to play socially, need to play for business, or want to play tournament golf. And I think that pretty much sums it up. And she's an elite level and award-winning golf instructor, and we're very excited to have her this morning. So when she comes on board, we will bring her on officially. So Cindy, just to go back to you for a second here, you mentioned at the top of the show that it's time to get back out and do some lessons. How is golf up there in the Northeast now? Is things starting to open up quite a bit more, or is everything pretty much open now?
It's opened more, but the pro shops aren't really open, and the golf courses, like yesterday I played with our son, and the clubhouse was closed, but the bathrooms on the course were open, thank God, right? Because I can't play 18 holes without having to go. But,
right.
Yeah, so again, they want you to social distance, only one person to a cart, but at least there's carts. I mean, there weren't carts. So it's such a blessing to be able to go outside and be able to play. Again, you don't realize what you don't have until you don't have it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And,
no, exactly.
So that being said, it's like, oh, wow, this is awesome, but I can really go outside and do this. So I'm grateful.
I wonder, yeah, I agree. I wonder if this new sort of way, I mean, eventually I know things will go back a little bit, but I'm wondering if this might be an opportunity now, too, for clubs to sort of reintroduce walking. And I know in certain areas of the country that's still a thing, but others I know that they really pushed, obviously they're trying to get more people to play, and some of them actually require you have to take a cart, you have no choice. I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for golf courses to rethink, because there's a lot, especially with the younger generation coming up, they enjoy walking, they enjoy, being out there with nature, and they're not as dedicated to hopping in the golf course. I wonder if this is an opportunity for many of the courses to bring back and allowing more golfers to walk. And that, again, in turn helps with the social distancing. What do you think about that?
I didn't even think of that. But what a great idea.
Well, we're all becoming more savvy, if you will, in physical fitness and trying to stay in shape. And I understand from golf clubs' perspective. I mean, again, like any business, you're dealing in volumes. And one of the things that I used to enjoy, obviously when I was younger, particularly when I had a little more energy, I used to love. Now we had pull carts in a lot of cases. I mean, earlier on we carried our bags, but now, that's not always as comfortable. But so there's a lot of pull carts. But I'm just wondering if maybe this is something that golf courses really need to start thinking about and allowing people, again, because it would be a great way even further, and I'm not trying to take away from the business, but to help with the social distancing, is letting people walk.
Yeah.
Gives them, it's a double-edged sword.
I totally agree.
And kind of getting back to a little bit of basics when it comes to golf. Because I think the other thing too, Cindy, I think what walking did, at least it did for me, and I'm sure it did as when you're playing on tour. When you're in a golf cart and you've hit your shot, you're racing up to the next shot. You don't really have a lot of time to think. And then you're up there, and of course, you've got the groups coming in behind you, and that there's not really a lot of time to really think about, okay, what do I want to do? And again, you've got to be, mindful of slow play and things like that. But I think if you're walking it gives you an idea. You can see where your ball is in most cases, unless you've hit it off course somewhere. So you can say, okay, it looks like I'm, pretty close up near the green, and you can start thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? Now, you're not maybe going to do a full assessment, but you can start thinking about your next shot. And walking allows you to do that, where a lot of times in the golf cart, the people, like I said, they're racing up there all the time, and then they get out there and they're kind of, stymied. Okay, what do I got to do? Well, I'm going to grab this club. And they're not really putting a lot of thought into it because they're kind of rushing themselves because they're rushing with the golf cart. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. I think that plus you're going to get more exercise. It's just the pace is slowed down. Everything's slowed down. I just, the problem is that push carts have gone, there's none to be found. Have you found that down there?
Yeah. Well, again, I think a lot of the golf cart courses, again, for years, especially when you get into areas around your resorts and things like that, they're dealing in high volumes. And again, also, particularly here in Florida, you've got a lot of senior golfers now. They're not in a position to, some of them, walk in that, and that's okay. But there are some that do. And I think that, I think it would be nice to bring some of that back. And certainly a pull cart or a push cart is a lot less expensive than, an electric or what have you, golf cart. And again, being mindful of social distancing, I think that it's a lot less to have to worry about wiping it down or cleaning and that after everybody's coming in. And a lot of people have their own. I mean, I know some older golfers that still have, pole carts from the 70s that they're still bringing to the golf course or in their trunk that they, bought years ago. So I think it's an opportunity for the industry to really take stock and say, okay, we want people to enjoy this game, but at the same time, we want people to enjoy the game. And I feel sometimes, it's just my perspective, but I just feel sometimes when you go and you're hopping into your cart, you feel like you're being rushed because you get some people that just get very aggressive and they're just speeding along and they just want to, you almost, thank God they didn't put horns on these things because, I can guarantee you there'd be groups that would be honking their horn and saying, come on, come on, come on, come on. So I'd like to see it kind of scale back. I'm not trying to dismantle the industry, but I'd like to see, I think, scale back a little bit to an earlier time. And you can, golf carts are not that expensive. The pull carts I'm talking about, they're really not that expensive, and it'd be less of a burden on the club. And I think that should be an option. And they can scale it in such a way that they can have both if they wanted to. But I just think that it's maybe an option to consider moving forward as we get a younger generation that is more fitness conscious and enjoys the walk and that. Because I've heard a lot of young people say that. I don't know about you, but I've heard a lot of people say that. Said, I would love to walk, but the courses won't let me. Food for thought.
You're right, but what I'm saying is when all this happened, I had so many people reach out to me to say, hey, can you get me a push cart? I'm like, well, they used to be called a pull cart. But
well,
push, pull,
and they have
whatever. But there were none to be had. So I called Sun Mountain, and they said, we're out of stock, and they're not coming in until July. So there was an issue of trying to get them.
Yeah. So obviously there's a need. There's obviously a demand out there if they're running out of stock. And, some of again, using technology, some of these pull carts or push carts, whatever you want to term them as, actually have the ability to self-propel. They have their own battery or, there's been some that have been featured at the PGA show and they've got like a little remote and some of them actually, I've seen one here recently, I think it was not this year, but I think it was the year before, and they actually ran off of with your cell phone. It was like a GPS or something. So basically what happened is you linked with the cart, and then as you walked, it would follow you. So you didn't have to push and yeah. So
Get
if you're leaking, that could be really creepy, especially and I know some guys do this. I don't, but I know some guys do this that go for a little wee in the bushes there, and next thing your cart's falling into the bushes.
I never thought of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, I think you can turn it off or pause it, but if you forget and you decide to duck in the woods for a little tinkle, and next thing you'll hear some crunching of sticks, and it'd be worse if they, because the technology's coming, they're going to have cameras on there, and we just busted Bob on hole number 7, making illegal infraction here. All right, enough of that. But anyways, I just think it's I think that whenever you can provide options for golfers, it's like anything. I think if you sort of push an industry into one direction or the other, then you're going to have folks out there to say, well, I don't really like that. But if there was an option that, hey, you know what, you don't have to take a cart. We've got, and again, depending on the volumes, and the courses have to sort of do their own assessment. But you've got some courses that have got 2 18s. You've got some of your big resort courses. They could do it very easily without interfering. They could say, okay, we're going to, if we've got enough. Again, you have to look at your volumes. Course A can be for walkers. Course B can be for carts. If you've got if the volumes are fairly, measurable that way. So there's a lot of options that you could do, and again, being a little creative. But I just think it would be sort of a win-win. And again, with technology, there's so many options. I mean, you're seeing now, Cindy, and I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, they've got scooters now. They've got these. They almost look like a little motorcycle.
They're great. Oh yeah,
I've never
did
used
it at Orange County during boot camp. I was like, I'm going to kill myself on this thing, but it was really kind of fun.
Well, exactly, and see that's the direction it's going, and something like that even would be better. I mean, I think you're going to see changes coming down the pike as the generations change. I mean, the traditional golf carts, I mean, they're fine, and they've changed those and kind of spruced them up a little bit than what they were 20 years ago. But I think that you're seeing more and more technology now. Whether it all takes up, I mean, they've got another one too where you stand up, and it's almost like I'm trying to think of what it is, but like one of those you
it's
kind of push
scooter with a motor.
Yeah, it's a scooter, but it's motorized, but you stand up, yeah. And then they've got other ones where you actually you sit down more. But again, that's not going to be for everybody. But you get some of these young kids out there, and they just love that. Now, the downside of that is you've got to be mindful, like you would with a typical golf cart, and stay away from the greens. I can see some kids getting a little crazy.
Thing is you got to watch how much you drink. Now you're driving something that you're going to go overboard, right?
Well, listen, I've seen some people flip golf carts too that have been taking the corners a little too fast down the cart path. So, but that's a given. But it's just something to think about. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe she got mixed up with the time or not. But I don't see Andree coming in. I don't know if we can perhaps reach out to her or not, Cindy, or maybe you've already done that.
Yeah,
but,
I'm doing that right now.
And see,
yeah,
but we will.
Sorry, she must have forgot us. Or maybe she's back teaching.
That could be it, or sometimes with the time too. I mean, the show obviously airs Eastern time.
Post.
Oh, okay. So then, she's in. I suspect she's just probably an oversight. But we'll give her a few more minutes, and if she doesn't show, then we will do our best to reschedule, and we apologize for that. That happens sometimes. People get busy, and we can't blame them. But, I think there's so many things, and I'm really, even though 2020 has kind of gotten off to a shaky start, obviously we've been dealing with this, Cindy, but I think this is going to be an opportunity for all industries, not just golf industry, but for all industries to really take stock and say, okay, how can we do things differently? How can we make changes, not just to monitor or adhere to social distancing? That's certainly one, but become more creative and how we do things, how we communicate with one another. And, I've seen a lot of people, I'm sure yourself included, where you've been on some of these different platforms and that are utilizing it. It's a great way to communicate and get the messages out there. And I think companies, as I mentioned earlier, V1 Sports and many of the others, and even Zoom, are working on ways to become more integrated with our day-to-day lives. And, I certainly don't want to take away. We want to get out and get the fresh air. But I think in some cases there are some opportunities for golf instructors to use more of an online platform to reach out to more students, before they get out to the golf course, and to allow them to say, here's some things. And I know there's a lot of programs that have been used for many years, but I think it's getting even more advanced now for golf instructors, and I think it's a great way to communicate. To be interesting, and we'll see what's going to happen in the next little bit. But it's a never-changing world, and we've got to adapt. And I think just like every other industry, the golf industry has to learn to adapt as well. What do you think?
Totally agree. I'm going to look at it as a blessing.
So let me get an update on the boot camps on your end, Cindy. What's happening? Are you starting to move forward? I know you had to delay or cancel some of the boot camps because of our current pandemic. Are you rescheduling for later in the season, or are you still kind of waiting to see what happens? What's going on?
Well, we're going to see about doing one in the fall in Buffalo before it snows. And then we might do one in November in Orlando, and then we're scheduling for next year. We're hoping that everything's going to be fine. There's going to be a vaccine, and nobody's going to be freaked out.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of playing lessons in Buffalo, and we've created an online community. So it's free. Mm-hmm. It's called the Miller Golf Community. And if you go to cindymillertraining.com, you can sign up for free, and we do free tips. And there is also a paid version. If you want the paid version, you get biweekly live coaching calls with Alan and I. It's $20 a month or $19.99 a month. And so anybody that wants to get better at their golf game and doesn't really want to pay a lot for it, the free version, we do have tips. We do have discussions. It's kind of like a Facebook group, but it's private. So
right.
cindymillertraining.com or millergolfcommunity.com, either one. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we've offered to people for the April boot camp we had to cancel or postpone.
Right.
And the funny thing is that we had 4 people sign up that we've never met. And 2 of them were from Seattle and 2 of them from Atlanta. And I reached out and I said, why did you do this? You want to hang out with me? And they said, yeah, we saw you on TV and we thought you were fun and different. And I'm like, well, you got that right. So what we're doing is we're doing some online stuff with them. Quiet, Ted.
Little do they know.
Yeah. Well, we had a Zoom call with them. So we do this
right.
golf behavior assessment, right? And we thought, well, let's get to working on your golf game before we get together. So it might be a blessing that their boot camp was postponed because they're going to learn more by having all this online stuff with us before they get to us in person.
Well,
so that's
let me just add to this. Yeah, let me just add to this as well. I have a friend who's a 30-plus year member of the PGA out in South Carolina, and he shared a similar story. I mean, not exact, but similar. His, of course, in South Carolina, many of the courses had still been open where he was. And so even though they have to monitor, and be respectful of social distancing, they have been able to get out. And he said what was really interesting that he found where there were a lot of people, just because they were able to go out, there wasn't a lot to do. There were a lot of people that had never played golf or been connected in any way, shape, or form with golf, were coming out to the golf course, and they were, in many cases, and for adults, they were bringing their kids as well. So on an upside of all of this, obviously, certainly not going to take away from the various tragedies that people have certainly suffered through this pandemic. But on sort of an upside or a positive way to look at it is it has allowed people to do things, sometimes by choice and sometimes because they had no choice, to do things that they maybe normally have never done. So I'm hoping, in retrospect, I'm hoping that the golf industry takes an opportunity to look at this and saying, this is something that has brought people out that normally would not come to a golf course. How can we do things to welcome and invite and want them to come back again? So again, it goes back to what I said earlier, and I'm not saying this is the only answer, but this is one of them, is create more options. Don't have it where, if they come to the golf course, they've got to take a golf cart. Or if they, come, they have an option. Have options available. They can walk if they want. Even if, they only play 9 holes. Allow them that opportunity. Don't just shut them out and say, well, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. So you really have to start looking at, because you're bringing people in, again, that didn't grow up in a golfing family, didn't bring up in a situation where they had golfers in their family. So they're new to the game, but they're coming out now because of what's been going on. So I think there's a real opportunity to, open up a market that maybe had not been open before to people that really had no. And I know we're always, growing the game, and we talk about that all the time. But this pandemic has, in many ways, has grown the game, not by choice, but by necessity. So just something to think about, I think, as professionals, how we can, really look at this as an opportunity to bring people in that normally don't have that exposure.
Yes. I did get an email from Andree, and she is driving across country and has vehicle issues.
No problem. Well, we're sorry to hear that.
Had to talk to a mechanic. Yeah. So I'm trying to reschedule her for a few weeks from now. Okay.
All right. So what we'll do then, we apologize, but obviously these things happen, and we hope that everything is all right and that it will be resolved. But it sounds like Andree's in good hands. So we will endeavor to get her rescheduled as quickly as possible. And I think, Cindy, what we will do is we will sign off a little bit earlier. This morning, we apologize that Andree wasn't able to join us, but yeah. So let's do that. So thank you, everybody. Don't forget, June 16th, the first issue of Golf Tips magazine that I'm publishing will be available at newsstands, and obviously subscribers that will come out to you a little bit earlier than that. But lots of great stuff in there. If you want to subscribe, go to golftipsmag.com today and subscribe. Thanks, everybody, for joining Cindy and I this morning on the Women of Golf, and we will see you next week. God bless everybody. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Ted. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.